Our top focus on Prime 5. According to reports, at least 2,400 demonstrators have been killed in Iran since anti-government demonstrations began in late December. Tensions are spiraling in Iran as nationwide demonstrations intensify. US President Donald Trump has now openly backed Iranian demonstrators. Trump has urged all the Iranians who are out on the streets to stay on the streets. And in his words, Trump has said, take over institutions, claiming that help is on its way. As we speak, over 2,000 people have been killed in Iran at this point of time, and this as there's massive demonstrations in the country. This is after it, of course, started over the economic fallout, and then they're demanding the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, to step down. Before we tell you about all that's happening with our guests and reporters, take a listen to the reaction that have been coming in on this.
And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right, now I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much, but I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
ما برای هر عملی آمادگی داریم. اگه میخوان که برخورد نظامی رو که یک بار امتحان کردند و نتیجه نگرفتند یک بار دیگه امتحان بکنن، ما آماده ایم. حتی از جنگ قبلی آماده تریم، هم به لحاظ کیفیت هم به لحاظ کمیت. اگر میخوان که گزینه‌های دیگر رو امتحان بکنن، برای اونها هم آمادگی داریم. هر گزینه‌ای که اونها امتحان بکنن، ما آمادگی داریم.
Well, Iran is now pointing the finger outward. Those accusations come as Trump publicly encouraged demonstrators to stay on the streets and signaled that tougher action remains on the table. Tehran alleges that the widespread unrest is the result of active involvement by the US and Israel. And at this point of time, Iran has rather blamed the US and Israel for all the demonstrations happening in the country. Officials claim that foreign powers quickly stepped in to push the situation towards chaos and confrontation in Iran. Iran's foreign minister has now told regional leaders that Washington and Tel Aviv are using public statements, online messaging, and covert networks to inflame tensions on the ground. The Khamenei regime claims to have evidence linking outside actors, foreigners, to deadly violence in the country. Well, Tehran state television has even aired footage of alleged operatives who have described as foreign connected. At the same time, while Trump has been issuing statements and warnings to Iran, Iran has also issued a warning saying that any direct strike on its territory would be answered, clearly lamenting that if US strikes Iran, then Iran will retaliate. Let's now take you through all the war of words which has been happening in the past few days, what Trump has said and what Khamenei or the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has said. First up, Trump last night said that help is on its way, to which Khamenei said that Trump is the main killer of Iranian people. Moving on, the next big statement by the US President Donald Trump is, I would ask the producer to move to the next page, which Trump has clearly said that US will take very strong action towards Iran if Iran continues to kill the demonstrators. To which Khamenei has said will defend itself against evil and foreign interference, clearly lamenting that it's US and Israel, they are to be blamed for the protests happening in Iran. Trump again asserts that US would strike back very hard to Iran and its officials. To that, Khamenei says that US and Israel military centers are legitimate targets. All the air bases around Iran are legitimate targets. That's if US strikes Iran. The last statement which has come out of the US President Donald Trump is, of course, which I just said, the strike that US would strike back to Iran. To get us a sense of all that's happening right now, my colleague Aditya Rajkol is now joining me live. Aditya, a war of words going on perhaps between both the countries right now. The million-dollar question being, will US actually strike Iran at this point of time? Your thoughts?
Well, yes, Raisha, that's the big question really, whether there will be a limited military strike by the United States against Iran. Well, the probability is 50-50 because you cannot go inside the mind of Donald Trump and really guess what he is going to really plan. He has already sought military options from the Department of War in United States and from the intelligence agencies. There are, of course, other non-lethal options like sanctions that could be imposed, but the sanctions have been used time and again in the last many years to really impress upon Iran to change its tactics. That clearly has not happened. We've seen some kind of a moderate statement from the Iranian foreign minister saying that he's ready for a dialogue, but that has been categorically rejected by Trump himself. He has said that he's cancelling all meetings with the Trump with the Iranian officials and the Trump administration. And at the same time, he's motivating the protesters to continue to protest. Not only that, he's asking them to take over the institutions. Now, already there are reports coming in that more than 2,000 to 3,000 people have died. There are some estimates by some media organizations and human rights bodies as well, that more than 12,000 people have died. This was asked to Donald Trump as well, and he said that in the next 24 hours there would be clarity. There's no official number or authentication on a final figure of the casualties that have really happened. But today, a mass execution really taking place of many of the protesters in Iran by the Iranian regime. At the same time, we are seeing protesters against the regime only increasing the pace. So what kind of a help is Trump really talking about? Will it be military strike, or will it be non-lethal sanctions or a diplomatic strike against Iran? We'll have to wait and watch. Israel also is keeping a close watch. There was a late-night security cabinet meeting that was organized yesterday. But as of now, we do not know whether there will be a military strike, because if there is a military strike, even if a limited one, it is possibly going to escalate into a larger conflict in the Middle East. That is certainly that many countries in the Middle East wouldn't want, especially after the Gaza-Israel war.
Right, Aditya, absolutely. And of course, the other big question is, what are the factors which will govern Trump's decision? Aditya, stay with us. I'm also being joined by my guest, Michael Feller. He's a co-founder, Chief Strategist, Geopolitical Strategy. Welcome to NDTV, Mr. Feller. First up, of course, like I was talking to my colleague, there's a war of words going on between Washington, D.C. and Tehran. Trump has, in clear words, he has asked Iran to behave, while Tehran seems adamant, and the Iranian supreme leader has said that we will defend ourselves against the foreign interference. Your assessment of where the situation is heading to, and also talk to us about the factors which will govern Trump's decision, because last night he said that help is on its way to all the Iranians who are out on the streets.
Thank you for having me. So essentially, as in the past, Donald Trump has an incentive to look like he's in control, that he's the central figure in all of this. It doesn't matter whether it's Iran or Venezuela or somewhere else. He's got to appear the central figure to his own constituents and to the world. So in the case of US intervention, you have to wonder why he will actually pull the trigger, so to speak. If he does intervene militarily, he only risks creating a domestic uprising, more of a, he puts the words in the mullahs' mouths. He essentially creates the foreign interference that they claim is driving these protests. So I don't think he will militarily intervene. But what I could expect to happen now that he's made the threat is beyond the sanctions, which have already been announced, that we could see cyber attacks, all that kind of thing, below the threshold of military escalation.
Right.
Right, Mr. Fella. Aditya, Mr. Fella, they're saying that he does not think there will be a military intervention. As we speak, there are 50,000 US personnel in West Asia, Aditya. But if there is a military strike per se, talk to us about the implications and the consequences moving forward.
Well, certainly, Rahisha, there are going to be massive consequences. And of course, any kind of a limited strike also possibly will involve several other countries because there are US bases all across. Yesterday, we've had the Iranian defense minister threaten the US, saying that if there is any kind of an attack or a military strike on Iran, then the US bases in the region, from UAE to Qatar to other places, will face the consequences. Remember, during the 12-day war as well, when the US B-2 bombers had attacked the Iranian nuclear arsenals and the centers, there was a reaction from Iran, and it had hit one of the locations in Qatar, and that had led to a diplomatic standoff, really, that was controlled through some kind of a mediation. But at this moment, we've seen a lot of countries uniting with the protesters. We've had at least 10 to 12 European countries yesterday summon their respective Iranian ambassadors against the killings of the protesters that have been reported. We've seen strong remarks from US, UK, France, and many other countries as well. But I wanted to take this to Mr. Fella as well. Mr. Fella, Aditya Raj called this side. I want to ask you also about what are the other options that the US or the West really would have if at all there is a regime change that is being spoken about. I've spoken to Israeli diplomats who say that their intelligence assessment is that there is no regime change possible in the near future. Then are these only pressure tactics to weaken the regime?
Yeah, that's right. The regime does seem united at this point in time. Also, Ayatollah Khamenei is 86 going on 87. He's not going to be around forever. And I would sense that regime change isn't going to happen while he remains. People are comparing this to Venezuela, but you can't decapitate the leader and then expect the regime to trundle on. Power underneath Khamenei is too diffuse. There's no Delcy Rodriguez, there's no vice president, although there's a president, although he doesn't have much power in Iran. So yeah, no good options for regime change. It's not such a cut and dry issue. So again, it makes me wonder, what's the point of a military intervention? There's only downside risk from what I can see. And what we saw last year after the strikes is it created a rally around the flag effect, if anything, in Tehran. Whilst they lost a lot of IRCG commanders and no doubt lost a lot of respect due to the flimsy defences, it meant that the regime carried on as before.
Right. Mr. Fella, Russia has also at this point of time warned of consequences. And like what Aditya was also making the point there, that yesterday Iran said that we have learned pretty well, unique experience during the 12-day war with Israel, and they are perhaps prepared for a war with the United States of America at this point of time. Your thoughts on that, and especially with all the countries coming in, how will that impact if there is military intervention by the United States of America and retaliation by Iran?
Well, they will see military intervention as being about regime change, not surgical strikes against nuclear facilities. So I think that they would only have incentive to really escalate, and that's through closing the Strait of Hormuz at a minimum and potentially attacking US air bases, not just in a token way, as happened in Qatar, where they telegraphed that, gave everybody half an hour's notice, but that we would actually see US personnel killed this time around. So, when their back's against the wall, what's the incentive to constrain oneself?
Right. I would request Michael and Aditya to please stay with us. I'll just show the viewers about the key US bases that we've been talking about here, which can come under the radar if there is a strike. All right, let's tell you more about the key Iranian targets for the United States of America and the missile production facilities, which Iran is still building ballistic missiles. Okay, first up, that Iran is still building ballistic missiles. These are the key Iranian targets for the United States of America. Moving on to the next pointer. CIA has already tracked over a dozen over and underground sites in Iran, which are potential targets for the United States of America at this point of time. The stock repletion is underway after the 2025 attack on Israel. After this, the other key Iranian targets for the United States of America is perhaps this is the overall key targets which can come under attack. Let's also now tell you about the US bases in Iran which can come under attack if US decides to militarily intervene in Iran. What are the US bases around Iran? So here we'll take you through the key US bases which surrounds Iran, which can come under the attack. First up, let's talk about their base in Turkey. That's the İncelik Air Base in Turkey, strength of 2,500. Remember, all these air bases around Iran, it comes up to 50,000 US personnel which are stationed in all these air bases. Moving on to Iraq, the air base there has around 2,000 US personnel. Then in Bahrain, the naval support activity there of the United States of America, strength 7,000. In UAE, the strength is 5,000. Remember, the air base in Qatar had come under the attack. The Al Udeid air base in Qatar had come under attack last year during the 12-day Israel-Iran war. Here, the strength is 13,500. It is also known as the logistics hub of the US air base in Qatar. Moving on to Saudi Arabia, the strength there is 3,000. Oman, 600. And lastly, Syria, which is also a key US air base in the country. It has a strength of 2,000. Hence, all these air bases around Iran, it accumulates to 50,000 US personnel, and they are under the radar only if US strikes Iran and Iran decides to attack all these air bases. Well, our guests are still here with us. Aditya, over to you first. How do you see the situation panning out in West Asia? We showed that map graphics there of 50,000 US personnel in West Asia.
Well, certainly it's a very serious situation, Rahisha, with the protests escalating in Iran, thousands of people on the streets. And let's remember that we have equal number of women folk also coming in to protest. There are clashes that have been reported. There are various videos doing rounds. But for almost a week now, there is a complete internet blockade. There's an internet ban that has been reported. Of course, there are now reports that Elon Musk has now sanctioned free Starlink satellite for the Iranians, but how many will be able to explore that option and use that using the equipment on ground would be still a big question mark. So we'll have to wait and watch what kind of strategy the regime really operates in, but there are statements going to and fro from Washington, D.C. to Iran and other countries also involving and trying to put diplomatic and political pressure on Iran to not go aggressive against the protesters. But I wanted to ask Mr. Feller as well about China and Russia. Mr. Feller, how do you see the support that has come in from China and Russia for Iran? There are very strong statements that have come in from the respective foreign ministries. But do you see beyond that, the military relations that these countries have, could physically, possibly China and Russia support Iran in some way on ground, or is that really restricted to the foreign policy statements?
I very much doubt that they will militarily intervene, should that be the option that President Trump takes. We saw similar offers of support for Venezuela before Maduro was toppled, and we saw similar offers of solidarity before the strikes on Iran last year. So not to say that Russia or China would welcome intervention, but they're not going to necessarily do anything about it. And some might actually say they would be happy for the US to be embroiled in another Middle Eastern war, should that be the consequence of any strikes.
Right, gentlemen, as we speak, we're also learning that the Iranian commander has given out a statement. He said that Iran's military at peak readiness for any US attack, and has said that we've perhaps learned from our mistakes during the 12-day war with Israel. Mr. Feller, over to you. How do you see this panning out? Because it seems like both the sides are battle ready at this point of time.
Yeah, battle ready in the rhetoric, but you have to look at the action. And whilst information coming out of Iran is difficult to pass due to the information blackout, it does seem from what I've seen that the protests are subsiding now. The regime is very much intact. It's very much unified at this point in time. And Trump has a lot on his plate. He's got Greenland to think about. He's got many other things to think about. And whilst he's the master of distraction, I just don't know if he wants to open this can of worms.
Right, and of course, we'll wait and have to see what are the factors that govern Trump's decision. But I would request both of you to please stay back. Let's tell our viewers about the possible scenarios that can happen if Trump strikes Iran. That's a million-dollar question. If US strikes Iran at this point of time, and what will be the impact in West Asia? Talking about Iraq now, these are the possible scenarios that we're breaking down for you here in Prime 5. First up, may face intensified internal divisions if US strikes Iran. And that is because of Iran-backed militias. They may then launch counter-attack on the United States of America. Now, the Shiite majority Iraq then risks becoming a primary battleground. Iraq will perhaps come in the crosshairs if US strikes Iran. Moving on to the next country, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they will brace for Iranian missile barrages because remember, like we told you here on the show, that both these countries, it has US air bases in their backyard. Hence, they will come in the crosshairs of the battle between both the countries. Moving on, Strait of Hormuz disruptions likely. Now, Strait of Hormuz was also disrupted during the 12-day Iran-Israel war last year. There will also be spike in oil prices if these countries get involved. Then they also moving on to the next country, Syria now. Syria again has a US air base in its backyard. And if this country comes under the radar, it may invite Iranian proxy surges from Lebanon through Hezbollah. It also may risking Israeli incursions and Turkish interventions. And lastly, it may endure the Hezbollah rocket exchanges. Hence, these are the possible West Asia impact if Trump decides to strike Iran. And we have our guest and our reporter, my colleague Aditya, with us. Aditya, over to you. How do you see this panning out? The West Asia impact, of course, at this point of time.
Well, firstly, Raisha, it's important to mention here that some stringent measures have been taken by several countries already. We've had a statement that has been issued by the Indian government today. It's an advisory by the Indian mission in Iran, and all Indian nationals have been asked to vacate and leave Iran as soon as possible. Be it people on pilgrimage, be it Indian students, be it tourists or business persons, they need to leave Iran as soon as possible because perhaps I would presume that the Indian government would have done an intelligence assessment and a diplomatic assessment that clearly indicates there could be more further violence and clashes. We do not know about a military strike, but that is not off the cards completely, and hence we can't take chances. Apart from India, already Canada has asked all its citizens to leave. America, US has also issued an advisory asking all American nationals to leave. Already, America does not have a diplomatic presence on ground, and that creates more problem for them. The Canadians also have a very limited role as per consular services. So this issue is going to escalate further. To what extent, we'll have to wait and watch whether there will be a military strike, whether there will be more sanctions or diplomatic and economic pressure on Iran. That is for us to see and verify over the next few days. But one thing is clear, that the protests are escalating and the Iranian regime is in tremendous pressure right now.
Right. And of course, the protests are increasing. I just also want to mention that what is different this time around is that the bazaris, if I may, the traditional merchants are this time the epicenter of these demonstrations in Iran. Mr. Fella, I just want to seek your inputs on the fact that Iran has blamed US and Israel. It says that it's the foreign interference due to which there are protests happening in Iran at this point of time. How do you see the situation evolving in the country? Do you think that it's time up for Khamenei?
I don't. I think we've seen so many of these protest movements. We had one in 2022, 23, 2009, 2005, 1999. But the regime still sticks around. And whilst it might pain many of us to say that, certainly they have a robust security apparatus there. We've seen the crackdowns. We've seen how efficient those crackdowns have been. So I don't think really they're going anywhere. And whilst the Bazaris and other constituents have joined or led the protests, there still are counter-protests. There still is a large constituency within Iran that supports the regime. And if foreign interference moved to the military dimension, if we saw strikes, we'll see what we saw last year, which is a rally around the flag effect.
Right, Mr. Fella. Thank you, Mr. Fella and Aditya, for joining me on Prime 5 and sharing your thoughts with us on this. All right, staying on with this story now, an Iranian protester, his name, Irfan Soltani, is reportedly facing execution in Iran today. That's after he was tried, convicted and sentenced following his arrest last week. His age, 26-year-old. He's just 26-year-old, and he was arrested at the peak of the demonstrations. That's before the internet blackout. Soltani is one of the many thousands of demonstrators arrested last week. Trump has warned Iran against executing demonstrators. Trump has said that the US would take strong action if the regime hangs detained Iranians. In a post on X, the US State Department said that Iranian officials had arrested more than 10,600 Iranians, but reports suggest that at least 2,000 have been killed in Iran. Let's now tell you more about this 26-year-old Iranian demonstrator who is on a death row as we speak. So who is Irfan Soltani? Who is this 26-year-old Iranian demonstrator? Now, he's just 26-year-old, of course, Iranian demonstrator. His name, Irfan Soltani. Reports say that he is likely to be executed today. Well, what's his fault? He was arrested last week when demonstrations peaked in Iran over economic issues and also the overall well-being of Iranians. He has been issued with death sentence within 2 days, and since then there has been no contact with the family since his arrest. All right, let's tell you more about what is happening in Iran. It's perhaps a neighborhood in West Asia, which is on the brink. Our next report perhaps giving you a lowdown of all that's happening in Iran and that's at this point of time, and what is next for the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
In the early hours of June 22, 2025, US military forces launched a precision strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan. The operation, called Operation Midnight Hammer, used a combination of long-range B-2 Spirit stealth bombers and submarine-launched Tomahawk cruise missiles in what Pentagon officials called a deliberate and precise strike.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
It was the largest operational deployment of B-2 bombers in US history, with 7 stealth bombers flying more than 18 hours and refueling in mid-air to reach Iranian airspace undetected. The bombers delivered multiple bunker busters specifically intended to destroy deep buried enrichment infrastructure. More than 24 cruise missiles supplemented the aerial assault, hitting key nuclear work sites. Hours after the operation concluded, Trump took to social media and television to defend the action. He declared that US forces had completely and totally obliterated Iran's key nuclear sites and also warned that Tehran must now seek peace instead of escalation.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight.
In the days leading up to the strikes, Donald Trump publicly signaled a hard line against Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Trump had repeatedly insisted Iran cannot be allowed to possess nuclear weapons.
It's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Iran's leadership denounced the strikes. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei described the strikes as a big mistake by the US and rejected claims that Tehran's nuclear program was crippled.
به مراکز هسته‌ای ما حمله کردن که البته این در خور پیگیری جزایی در دادگاه‌های بین‌المللی است به طور مستقل.
Khamenei pledged that punishment continues for perceived enemies and vowed a strong response, signaling Iran's intent to resist foreign pressure and intervention. The US-Iran confrontation has now reached a new level of intensity, with regional and global powers closely watching each development. Bureau Report, NDTV.
And well, at this point of time, the big question is it time up for Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Clearly, Iran has blamed the United States of America and Israel for the protest happening in the country. And with thousands of Iranians out on the streets fighting for their rights at this point of time, we'll wait and have to see. The million-dollar question being if US will strike Iran at this point of time. We'll, of course, be tracking that very closely. And shifting our focus to another news right now. And this is from the United Kingdom, where a neighborhood in West London is at a breaking point. We say that because a disturbing incident unfolded in Hounslow, West London, where a 15-year-old Sikh girl was abducted and gang raped by men of Pakistani origin. Reports confirm that the girl was held captive in a flat by the members of the grooming gang from Pakistan, and she was subjected to repeated abuse. The case came to light after videos of the incident spread across social media, but it wasn't the police who broke down the door. It was a crowd of 200 Sikh community members who gathered outside the accused residence, refusing to leave until the girl was released. The community says that they went to the police first, where they were greeted by silence. These gangs often target vulnerable girls aged 11 to 16, inciting them with promises of love, gifts, and friendship. Once isolated, victims face blackmail, threats, and trafficking for profit. And my colleague Aditya is with us. Aditya, this is a heart-wrenching news coming. A Sikh 16-year-old girl gang raped by grooming gang of Pakistani origin, and the UK police there also taking no action.
Well, absolutely. A very horrific case, a very shocking case coming to light from United Kingdom. But this is not the first and perhaps won't be the last. Over the last many years, such cases of grooming gangs, particularly Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs who have been targeting the Sikh community, girls aged 11 to 16. That's been the modus operandi. And such thousands of cases have come to light where such grooming gangs attack, abduct, and then gang rape such girls and also take videos of the same.
Yeah.
Many of the Pakistani nationals or Pakistani origin people have been arrested from time to time. Their videos have been released by vigilante groups and human rights groups as well. But this particular group is has been in action for a very long time. This particular case is from West London in Hounslow, where a 15-year-old Sikh girl was targeted by these Pakistani Muslim gangsters, which is part of the grooming gang modus operandi. In this particular case, 6 perpetrators were involved, including a 34-year-old, and a massive protest was organized by the Sikh community when the videos really went viral. Because of the kind of reaction from the society, not many of these cases come to light, but whichever do, the police has been trying to act as well. This case has been raised in the House of Commons and the UK Parliament as well, and opposition has often attacked the government to take more steps. And over the years, there are thousands of such cases that have come out, but still a massive approach by The local police, the Scotland Yard and the Metropolitan Police hasn't been taken. So the security forces, the police has come under tremendous criticism, even as such cases come to light almost every week or month in the United Kingdom.